So I know I usually make like fitness videos and whatnot, and I don't even really know why I'm recording this, but I always have thoughts in my head, and I seldomly let them out. Sometimes I let them out via Facebook or Instagram in a post or something like that. But I don't know. I felt like documenting this for whatever reason, but my name is Stephen Crawford. You know, I'm a Herbalife health coach. You know, college graduate, never been in trouble with the law, never been arrested, don't have a record or anything like that. But I'm very, very in tune with the things that are going on in America, and I'm very studious as to figuring out my heritage and, things that used to happen to African Americans, because I don't want to be the person who points the finger at people. I don't want to ever want to be the person who is like, oh, racist, and not have any context behind it, and not having, I really would like to say like there's no form of racism and there's no hate, and I would, if that was truthfully the case, then I wouldn't mind saying it. But in all honesty, the things that are coming to light, and especially with social media, and then all the information that's out there, and people finally stepping up and saying things, it's really hard for me to sit back and actually say that there's no such thing as, racism. There's no such thing as, the black people being deemed. I don't like to play victim, but what I understand is you kind of have to understand that you are the victim. You're the pretty much black people were the victim of this somebody finding a piece of land and not wanting to build it themselves. So what I watched was 13th on Netflix finally, after getting a little bit of courage and time to say I'm just gonna watch it, because I seen like, okay, one more person post about this. I still haven't seen Birth of a Nation. I don't know if I can right now, being in the mental state that I'm in. I wear my emotions heavily on my sleeves when it comes to things like this. But what 13th is about, if you haven't seen it, or even if you have and you just need some contextual clues behind it, 13th is referring to the 13th Amendment that was put in place to essentially say that all Americans cannot be slaves. You can't. Slavery is illegal, and it was, in the context behind the entire thing, was the little clause that said, unless you're deemed a criminal. Basically saying that if you're a criminal, you can still be considered a slave. And it was completely justifiable. So what happened was, in America, and if we want to go back to, I'm not going to go through a whole history lesson, but we understand that Europeans, Christopher Columbus's of the world, is, came upon this land that was inhabited by Native Americans, but they saw potential, so they took the land from them, and needed the land, which is the United States, which was territory at the time. They needed the land built. They needed, people to build railroad systems to go from one coast to the next. They needed all kinds of things, coal mining, and they needed buildings built. They needed all these things, all this manual labor. So instead of doing it themselves, they went and stole black people from Africa off of the coast with their weapons, because, as you know, like Native Americans, the indigenous people of this country, then the indigenous people of Africa, I want to use the correct terminology, the indigenous people of that piece of land. So the indigenous people of Africa were not able to fight back because they don't have firearms. We were fighting with spears and sticks and stuff versus guns. So it was easy for them to take massive waves of Africans to the now known as the United States, and work and not pay them anything and dehumanize them and make them look like animals. And I feel like that's where the problem really starts, because at that point in time, you're taking somebody and giving them the title of one, sometimes a third of a human being, or 2/3 of a human being is what it got up to. But it's like now you're You're picturing these people, depicting these people as animals that are overtaking your land whenever slavery is abolished. But then there's Jim Crow laws, so now there's segregation, and now you're blatantly able to depict these people as animals and criminals and rapists of their women and things like that, when it was truthfully the opposite way around. And we're just here in a country, in a land that does not accept us as a whole human being, but yet we have no way of getting back home. We have no way of getting back to our heritage. So we're just here and we have to deal with it. And this is something that people don't even accept. They don't even really realize that that's how we were treated. You know, if your skin color was my color, you were looked at as an animal, no matter what kind of person you were. You were looked at because of your skin color and where you came from, as you were looked at as an animal, as a rapist, as a threat to society. So what the documentary pretty much covered was how we went from slave times to Jim Crow laws to mass incarceration. And the last hour of the documentary talked about how today, you know, from the 1960s on to today, mass incarceration has been the new form of slavery. And, you know, I won't go into everything, but some things that really stood out to me was the fact that, you know, from a presidential standpoint, from Nixon to Ronald Reagan to Bush to Clinton, these four presidents all pushed the envelope for mass incarceration. So, you know, Nixon creates the problem. Reagan pushes the envelope by dumping, you know, by having, you know, drugs being dumped into the urban community. And then Bill Clinton enforces harsh ass punishments, you know, after George Bush, you know, it really pushes the envelope on, you know, the mass incarceration of, you know, the drug, crack cocaine. And what tripped me out was that the fact that you have cocaine, and you have the cocaine in suburbia, and if you're caught with cocaine, you're getting, you know, what, 90 days probation, or maybe, you know, at the harshest 1 to 3 years. But then you turn that same drug into a smokable form and give it the name crack cocaine, and now that is deemed, you know, maybe like a 16th of a sample size is deemed as punishable by like life in prison. And you can like really put somebody in jail for a lifetime for the same drug that you're giving people 90 days probation off of. And to me, you know, that is where the mass incarceration kind of took off. And you know, when Bill Clinton got into office, you know, they were making mandatory laws, and all of these things were just to keep African Americans and Latinos in a new form of slavery, keep them in prisons. And they were keeping them in prisons because it was a financial benefit. So they learned how to keep using African Americans and immigrants as a financial gain from the time of United States' conception to. So now, I mean, I feel like we're just at a point now, today, in, you know, 2016, 2017, with all the Black Lives Matter things that are going on, I really feel like we're in a rebellious state. And now people are painting the picture of, see, you know, black people are animals and da 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 da. And it's not like that. You have to understand, for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, your people were mistreated, your people were unfairly murdered, and your people, and it's been like totally justified. It showed how it really broke down in the documentary how it was a financial gain every step of the way for people. You know, there was the group ALEC that pretty much controlled everything. So from the time of, you know, being arrested, being a financial gain, to the phone calls you made, to the food you ate in prison, to you being let out of prison and or you fighting, you know, and doing bail. But like everything was ran around financial gain for them. And it really is a thing of where they really wanted to control African Americans. And to be correct, I don't even like the term African American anymore, because that was given to us by Frederick Douglass to make us feel better about ourselves. And we're from Africa, or we're American. We're not African American, and we have to see that. But it really killed me off when it says, this is the last point I'll make, because I know a lot of white people say that more white people are killed by police, and that more white people are there. Throw the statistic out there, but they don't really understand that the black African American male, or whatever name you want to call us, is only 6.5% of the population in the United States. 6.5, not even 10% of the population is black men. So the numbers are very, very skewed. But if you're looking at the number of people that are in prisons, only 6.5% of this country is African American males, but 40.9% of the prison system is African American. So that is a huge swing. That gives you the statistic of 1 in every 17 to 19 Caucasian Americans will be incarcerated, and 1 of every 3 African Americans in our lifetime will be incarcerated. These are facts by the consensus. So to me, that lets you know a system that never really wanted you to win, and a system that benefited from financial gain from your imprisonment and your enslavement. So how I feel about it, I don't even know, honestly. At this point, I don't really think that I can go see Birth of a Nation, just because for me, I play both sides of the fence. I just want to work as hard as I can to where that is not an issue anymore. But I can't disrespect the people that died, the Emmett Tills, the Harriet Tubmans, the Martin Luther Kings, the Malcolm X's, the people who were either killed trying to make sure that we had rights and as a human being, and then the people who were in prison but then were savvy enough to get out of prison and then were extradited out of the country, like things that we don't even know. There are so many civil rights activists that don't live in the country anymore because they would be dead for what they know. So I think the fixing of the problem is, the guy summed it up very, very well, as they're now going through like the mass incarceration reforms, trying to not have so many people in prison. But the problem is just this, and I think it's going to always be, is that they will never admit the mistakes that they made, and that they were doing it for financial gain. So if they're not ever going to admit that, there's always going to be a new form of slavery to mask the last one. And that is what I'm clear on after watching this, that there are just different waves of masking slavery. And it started from just pure form right out slavery to Jim Crow segregation laws to now mass incarceration, and we're moving out of mass incarceration right into who knows what next. And it's looking like it's straight blatant justifiable murder. Like, now everything is justifiable murder, by the law enforcement. And I'm willing to bet that sooner or later we're going to find out that's for financial gain as well. But all I can do is keep fighting. All I can do is keep painting the positive picture. People say, if you have never been arrested, if you've never been in a situation, like, trust me, I've been pulled over more times than I like, and never been arrested, because I've been profiled because how I look. I like tattoos, but most people don't realize that most of these tattoos are fraternity tattoos, from a fraternity of brotherhood. And this is, a tattoo, 100% accountability, taking accountability for my life. I like to, have that form of self-expression. But when you looking at it from a distance, and I'm African American, and I'm athletic, and, I look young, I look like trouble. And I've been profiled for that a lot. I remember being in college and I was pulled over, and I was pulled out of my car. Canines came. I was outside for 2.5 hours before they finally admitted that they had been busing kids, bringing in drugs to college because it was the first week that we were going back to college. And they really were cracking down, and they targeted me for possibly being a distributor of narcotics. I was a basketball player. I played basketball for that city, for those people to cheer on, to give them pride. The captain of the basketball team that eventually turned pro. That's the guy you targeted and made him look like a fool in front of the entire campus. Yeah, I've been there. It's happened multiple times, but that's the one that I'll never forget because it's the one that blew my mind. But I'm not going to sit here. I don't even know what I'm going to do with this footage. Probably put it together, throw it on an unlisted video on my page for people searching. I don't really know. But all I know is that I'm understanding that in my lifetime, I'll probably never see equality. In my lifetime, people are spitting in the face of Black Lives Matter movement, and they don't even realize that we are the only culture that has never been considered from the time of its conception to be equal. We've never been considered to be equal. But now we're trying to say that our lives matter too. Not that nobody else's lives matter. And until that is recognized, we're not going anywhere. So, buckle your seatbelt if you're an African American or an American that has darker skin pigmentation. Keep doing what you're supposed to do. Keep winning. Keep fighting. No need for backlash because success is the best way for revenge. So, everybody have an amazing week, summer, fall, winter, whatever time it is that you get to see this. But, yeah, man, the world is unfair. Sometimes I can sit back and just cry, but that ain't gonna solve nothing. So,